Blog Talk Radio. Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 9 years, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. April is Autism Awareness Month, and Snip-its Salon, a child-focused hair salon and franchise, has partnered with Autism Speaks to develop a special haircutting training guide for stylists and parents to better the experience for the child. And we're meeting with Snip-its Director of Artistic Education, Marsha Cole. And we'll speak to Marsha about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system.
Coach.
Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed.
Consult.
Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track.
And advise.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
That's franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
Are you looking for a franchise that delivers? Businesses will always need shipping, and for more than 25 years, loyal customers have depended on Unishippers for reliable savings and exceptional customer service. Unishippers is focused on just one thing: helping small and medium-sized businesses save time and money on all their shipping needs. And as the largest reseller of complete shipping services in the country, we have the buying power to ensure that we succeed. The Unishippers franchise offers low startup costs, no equipment or real estate required because they're not retail, residual income, and a quality of life and work-life balance. For more information on becoming a Unishippers franchisee, go to www.unishippers.com and click Franchise Opportunities or call Franchise Development at 801-708-5822. That's 801-708-5822. Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 9 years we've been asking the Franchpreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. Well, April is Autism Awareness Month. At Snip-its Salon, a child-focused hair salon and franchise, has partnered with Autism Speaks to develop a special haircutting training guide for stylists and parents to better the experience for the child. And we're meeting with Snip-its Director of Artistic Education, Marsha Cole. Hi, Marsha. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing great, Marty. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Marsha, for having me on the show. You know, I was really excited. We actually had, I think it was Kim Ellis a couple of years ago on the show, and I was telling her a funny story, Marsha. When we had our son, he was terrified of getting a haircut. That we had to let his hair grow long, and the grandparents were getting very upset, and they're like, you got to cut his hair. But he would freak out every time we took him to the salon. So I fell in love with your concept a long time ago, and then I heard about what you were doing with Autism Awareness Month. I have a nephew, Nicky. He's 15 years old now, and he has autism. And, you know, so when I heard about everything that you're doing, I said, oh, God, we have to have you on the show. But maybe, you know, you could sort of, if there's anyone unfamiliar with Snip-its, you could talk a little bit about Snip-its Salon and maybe what your role there is, Marsha.
Yeah, so Snip-its, we're the largest, fastest-growing child haircut franchisee, and it's really dedicated to making haircuts fun for children and more relaxing for the parents that come in. It was founded in 1995 by Joanne Mycelis, and it's great because our goal is turning a traditionally mundane, often unpleasant experience into a fun-filled, animated adventure. So, Marty, my role at Snip-its is actually to create and implement different training programs, such as our autism certification program. That's just one of them.
Right. It's not easy, Marsha, is it? You know, I mean, when we're talking about autism, because, you know, I guess, you know, not everyone is, maybe not everyone has direct experience with autism, you know, because I've been familiar with it, you know, for, 15 years now. Again, it was new to me at the time. I didn't know anything really about autism. I heard about it, you know, but to have like direct experience with it, and my nephew is severely autistic, you know, so he went through a lot of these things, and, you know, at the time when he was young too, it was the same experience. They would have to start, my sister was actually cutting his hair because it was just a terrifying experience, and not everyone knows how to work with an autistic child, do they?
No, and actually, you know, your story is pretty common when we hear parents that, you know, they couldn't find a salon that could cut their child's hair. So now with the certification program, you know, they really feel comfortable bringing their child in and having them do our hair. And with the training and partnering with Autism Speaks organization, it really helps us as a salon and stylist, you know, really know how to cope with autistic children.
Sure, absolutely. What sets Snip-its apart from other children's salons, Marsha, would you say?
Well, first of all, when you walk into our salons, they're very colorful salons. I don't know if you've seen one yet, Marty.
Yes, I have. Yes.
But they're very animated. We have a cast of animated cartoon characters. We have interactive branded computer games, and actually the characters are on our games, so they get used to, you know, seeing our characters. And then we have the Magic Box, and they really like the Magic Box. So when they come in, they get a Snip-its adventure card, and they carry that with them until they get done with their haircut. And after their haircut, we take a lock of their hair, and they get to put this card in our Magic Box. And when they put that in, a prize comes out that they went through the haircut, they did great, now they're being rewarded. So that's really unique with us, too. Also, we have a complete line of hair care products specially formulated for our kids. And then our unique variety of training programs that cater to children, you know, cutting hair on a moving target. Life certification. We have a lot of different other programs, too, that cater to children.
Snippets is an experience, isn't it, Marsha? I mean, especially, for the child, even the parent, but I mean, especially for the child, is almost like making a haircut fun. And whoever thought, that a haircut could be fun, but I suspect, a lot of the children that come in, I mean, they actually look forward to their haircut at Snippets, don't they?
Yeah, and we actually have kids crying when they're leaving because they don't want to leave.
That's a great sign, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. We were saying in the beginning of the show, in the introduction, we were saying that, April is Autism Awareness Month. And, maybe you could talk a little bit more about what, Snippets is doing to tie into this cause, Marsha.
Yeah, so for the month, we call it Light It Up Blue. Mm-hmm. And what our salons do, the stylists, they get in the spirit, and they put blue lights up, streamers, they wear blue balloons, T-shirts. They really have a fun time with this. And when the clients come in, they go, oh, that's great. They know we're raising awareness for the autism and a role in the autistic community. So it's really a fun thing that stylists like to do, the customers like to see, and it really shows that we have support for them.
Yeah, and it is. It's such an important cause. Being unfamiliar with autism, 15 years ago, it was when you start becoming aware of it and you start researching it, it's amazing how many children actually have autism. You just don't know until you start researching. You say, oh my God, there's a lot of kids out there that have autism, isn't there?
Yeah, and when we started this program in 2009, the stats, I believe, were 1 in 150.
Yeah.
And now the stats are 1 in 66.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it was alarming.
People are more aware of it, and definitely in our salons, we do a lot of autistic children.
Yeah. What makes a haircut so difficult for a child with autism, Marsha, for those who, may not have experience with autism?
Well, a haircut is a total sensory overload for a child with autism.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sight, sounds, physical contact that occur, causing an unfamiliar experience to be very traumatic for the child. So we do have to do different steps for that child, which we do train our stylists in that.
Sure, absolutely. So how did Snip-its come to partner with Autism Speaks anyway, Marsha? I mean, how did you get involved with the organization?
Yeah, we wanted to give all of our children that come into our salons the best opportunity to get through that haircut. So as the years went by, we noticed we were getting more and more autistic children. So we partnered with Autism Speaks, and, of course, they're the experts, so we sat down with them. And what we learned from them, we put into our certification program, and then what we know on the hair cutting part, and we kind of combined the situation and made the certification program.
How does the, maybe you could talk about the training program, Marsha, how did the whole thing come about? How did you come about developing this whole training program?
Well, our stylists, they are really into this program. First of all, they really want to be trained in it.
Right.
So what we did, the first thing we did, we actually created a video and a DVD, which is on our website, stylists.com. And we took a regular customer of ours that was autistic, and we actually videotaped the steps that we recommend. And the video is only a couple minutes long, but it's a great video too for the parent, because the parent can show their child to get them in the routine of coming into Snippets to get their hair cut.
Right.
It's not so stressful when they get there.
Yeah.
So the DVD helps out a lot, and the parents like it. And now with the iPads and the iPhones, they can put it on their phone and constantly show their child that this is what's going to happen, when you go in to get your hair cut. Then we actually, after that, made a hair cutting training guide. And this is actually on our website, too, Snip-its.com. And they can get it printed out. And it has some great tips in there, just how to groom your child's hair. But it actually has a very important tool in there, and I call it the visual path. And what it is, it's a very visual piece that goes into steps of what we're going to do when they come in and get a haircut. And it's great for the stylist to have to keep them kind of distracted from them getting a haircut. And it's great for the parents to have this at home, too, to keep going over, this is the routine, this is what's going to happen. So this is a great tool for our stylists and the parents for them to have. So we actually, when our stylists are hired, we like to get them certified quickly. So we have webinars, and then we do it live, too. If we happen to be in the salon, we'll certify them right in the salon.
That's fantastic. You said some key words that, I've come to experience myself is, the whole routine, which seems to be very important for children that have autism. That is a big part of the, I guess one of the big tips, isn't it, is routine and just kind of also distracting the child in a way, too. I know my sister, is always trying to distract Nikki, as far as, sometimes what's going on, whether it's using an iPad or some kind of, like, thing that he could touch, just to kind of like not focus so much on the haircut itself, but you can see that Snip-its really has done their homework. So what does it mean to you, Marsha, to work for a company that's so involved with its communities?
Well, it's really rewarding to work for a company that cares so much about our clients. The Snip-its stylists are really dedicated to making each and every community member that walks through those doors has a positive experience. And this partnership with Autism Speaks, does that. So it's just very rewarding.
That's fantastic. How can parents learn more about Snip-its autism training program, Marsha? I mean, going to the website, is that one of the best places to go? Or?
Yep, you can go to the website, www.snippits.com.
Okay.
And we actually have a tab on there, and especially we have it this month on the autism. And you can print out the haircutting guide, and you can actually see the video, too.
That's fantastic. So where is Snip-its looking to expand now, Marsha? I mean, since I've last, spoken to your organization, a couple of years back, where are you looking to expand in the country?
So our target markets for 2016, we're targeting Minneapolis, San Diego, Orlando, San Francisco, the New York area, Kansas City, St. Louis, my area, Philly, and Miami.
Those are pretty big markets, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're going to be busy.
Yeah, and your industry is huge too, Marsha. I remember when I was having, Kim on the show, and you take, one single child and you multiply it by the amount of times that they get a haircut, over so many years. I mean, this is a $1 billion industry, isn't it?
Yeah, and then you have to put into effect too, if they really like the service, how many friends they tell. And now with the blogging and the mommy blogs, it can multiply pretty quickly. So we stay pretty busy.
With social media, that's fantastic. Is the website then the best place to go to, Marsha, for anyone who's interested in getting involved in the Snip-its franchise opportunity? What's the website address again?
It is www.snippits.com.
That's easy enough. And I want to thank you again for, coming on the show, Marsha, and also to, Snip-its dedicating to this cause. Again, it's a very important cause, and when you were giving those numbers, it's like 1 out of every 60 or 70 children have autism. I think that Snip-its is really doing a fantastic thing, and I really thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Marsha, and we'll be right back with more franchise interviews.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Blog Talk Radio. Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 8 years, we've been asking the Franchpreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. We're meeting with Kim Ellis, the vice president of franchise development of Snip-its. And Snip-its has changed the dynamic of children's hair care by turning what has traditionally been considered a mundane and often unpleasant experience into a fun-filled adventure. We're going to talk to Kim about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we got a great show.
Are you one of those special people who are willing to go after your dreams and goals? Are you ready to fulfill that dream of owning your own business with the security of a proven brand? The opportunity to take control of your future and own a Rita's Italian Ice franchise is within your reach.
Rita's is seeking success-oriented individuals who are ready to make a change in their life, and Rita's offers unparalleled training and support to assure your success. And did you know the frozen treat industry is a recession-proof industry, and there are Rita's in 23 states currently with 540 stores open. Rita's Italian Ice has been around for 25 years and is listed as a top-performing franchise by the Wall Street Journal.
Now here's the really good part. Rita's Italian Ice is a unique and amazing taste treat. It's smoother than a snow cone, and it combines ice with real fresh fruit. The real fruit adds dramatically to the taste, and it comes in over 40 flavors. The ice and fruit are mixed on site and made fresh daily, and it is delicious.
You'll want to know more about this exciting and successful franchise opportunity. Go to www.ownaritas.com and get all your questions answered. That's www.ownaritas.com to take control of your dreams and future today. You don't want to wait any longer to be a part of this adventure. www.ownaritas.com.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 8 years, we've been asking the Franchpreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with Kim Ellis, the vice president of franchise development of Snip-its. And Snip-its has changed the dynamic of children's hair care by turning what has traditionally been considered a mundane and often unpleasant experience into a fun-filled adventure. Hi, Kim. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Can you hear me okay?
Thank you so much, Kim. I hear you great. Thanks for coming on the show. You know, I had to just start off the show with just a little personal story. We have a 7-year-old boy, and it was always a nightmare to take him for a haircut. And we always thought that we were the only ones that had this problem. But once we started researching, your franchise, we said, I think this is a bit more of a problem than when we thought it was, isn't it?
It is. It's actually pretty much what started Snip-its. Our founder was in the same situation, and she felt very strongly about having to find or trying to find a better way to do it. And I hear that from everybody that comes to us looking at our franchise. They think, wow, this is such a great solution to such a traumatizing situation for youngsters.
It is, Kim. I love it. I've seen former interviews with you before, and I just like the way you describe it. It makes sense. I mean, if you're a child, and you see these scissors coming at your head, I mean, it's got to be a detrimental experience, right?
It is. It is. Well, you in a lot of cases, most adults are forced to bring their kid to either an adult salon or a quick cut kind of place, and there's nowhere for the parent to sit. So obviously they take the child, they wrap them in a cape, stick them in a very large adult-sized chair, and start spraying their hair down, or worse yet, give them an actual shampoo. And here's this stranger coming at them with scissors. So it certainly doesn't make for a very positive situation for a child, especially when they don't really understand what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
we were actually letting his hair grow, Kim, and our the grandparents were getting a little bit upset about that because his hair was getting very long. And then I said, well, you have no idea what we go through when we take him for a haircut.
Right.
So it was just, I love this service. And when I said, oh, my God, I said, that's it. I said, it's fantastic. And Snip-its has an interesting history. It's one of the reasons why we started the shows. We always, find that, a franchise like yourself has a great story. And this story actually started in Boston, didn't it?
It did. Our founder, Joanna Masalis, she is actually Jack Benny's granddaughter.
That's incredible. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so she's also the daughter of a Academy Award-winning director. And so she comes from an entertainment background, which is sort of how this whole thing came to fruition. She took her son to have his haircut, and it was traumatizing. It wasn't the I'm going to take a cute little movie and watch it later notoriety kind of thing that you have that you look back on with nostalgia. It was actually a very difficult situation. In fact, she was asked to leave in one case, in one salon. They were not treated well by the stylists, and the child really was traumatized. So after years of research, she put together what she felt was a pretty strong franchise, or actually a business model. She really didn't start this as a franchise. She started it as a business. And ended up with a concept that allowed the child to feel very comfortable, very memorable branding, a great introduction when they walk in the door. It's sort of like walking into Disneyland. The branding is very Disney-like, Dr. Seuss-like, and all of the staff is trained to work with kids. They bring the child and the parent into a cutting station. The child can then feel comfortable having mom or dad sitting there. They're actually distracted with video games, proprietary video games that we've developed, and it allows the stylist the time to have a really good quality haircut because the child's not moving and squirming and crying, and everybody comes away with a much, much better experience.
The target audience is pretty large too for Snip-its, Kim. Right? I mean, imagine. I mean, it starts at the earliest of ages up until what would you say your target audience is as far as age goes? Anyway.
Yeah, we actually say 0 to 9. Some kids have a lot more hair when they're young, and other kids are, they kind of grow into it. But yeah, we typically do kids that are under the age of 9. About the time they hit 9, they're a little bit too old. They don't want to go to the kids' salon anymore.
Sure.
They want to go where mom and dad go. But up until then, we are one of very few salons in the country, and certainly on a national basis, that cater to kids. So when you look at a $40 million industry that the salon industry is, and you think about the fact that there are 320 million haircuts for kids. 40 million kids in the U.S., 6 to 8 haircuts per year, 320 million haircuts. That's a $5 billion market potential. And currently, there's really only 4 different companies on a national basis catering to this particular niche. And so it really is a very interesting and very unique opportunity for franchisees to get in on because of that solution base.
Yeah, I haven't seen anyone else really doing what you're doing, Kim. We've been doing these interviews now quite a long time, and we're approaching like our 9th year. And I thought that this concept is really it's very original. I mean, everything that you described, I guess, that's pretty much what sets you apart from everyone else that's out there.
It is. I actually was brought in 2012 as a consultant, and I literally fell in love with this concept and came on full time as an employee because I really recognized that the business model itself was very, very sound. I mean, I came from a hair care industry. I was with Grey Clips and Regis, and so I understand the salon industry. But when you take it to the next level and really cater to a very specific niche, you start to really resolve some of the situations that you can find in the salon industry. And by that I mean most stylists don't want to do kids' hair. So they're really happy to have us in the mall next to them. They can refer all of that business to us. And we don't do adults, so we can refer that business back. That gives us the potential to really have a pretty open playing field in terms of finding real estate, getting our salons open. We took a lot of care and a lot of pride in putting together a franchise system that I think personally is way ahead of the size of our organization in terms of the framework of the support that we provide and the experience level. We have a very team approach to supporting our franchisees, and I got to tell you, the team that I work with is top-notch. They all have many, many years in the salon industry and many, many years of franchise experience. So over 200 years combined experience in both regards. So it's pretty impressive the way that they can help our franchisees and the passion they have for this business.
Which is so important to franchising, right, Kim? I mean, is the support that you're getting, I mean, again, and we'll talk about it. But, I mean, it sounds like you don't have to really have experience in this particular industry to become a franchisee? Actually,
I would say we would prefer it. No offense to stylists at all. But we really have a pretty proven formula for how to run this business. And we want semi-absentee franchisees. This is a manager-run business. And so you get your salon open, you hire a really top-notch manager, and you encourage and support that manager, and you will save a lot of headache of trying to run it in the salon yourself. It's really, like I said, a manager will run the day-to-day, and the franchisee's responsibility is focused on, driving that top line, minimizing your expenses, doing the marketing, and really maximizing that bottom line.
So working on the business and not so much in the business, cutting hair, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
That's great.
Which is really appealing to a lot of people because obviously you can keep your day job, your career.
Sure.
So keep doing what you're doing well, but add this as, an idea of building a legacy business for your family or having additional income or just the pride of ownership. It does give folks that are looking at, ideas for franchising an opportunity that doesn't require them to put themselves in a financial strait because they have to quit their job.
Sure, absolutely, and it's so important. It seemed in studying the franchise model as well, Kim, it seemed like there was this multiple revenue streams with Snip-its. Maybe we could talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. One of the other things that I loved about this business is the multiple channels for our franchisees. Obviously, our core business is haircuts. So we've got a pretty substantial income percentage based on just doing haircuts. But in addition to that, we also have 4 other areas, and one is spa services. And yes, I did say spa services. We do manicures, pedicures, and facials for little girls. So, because you can never start a child young enough working on those wrinkles.
Right, of course.
I'm kidding. It's
great.
actually
it's great.
It's a really fun little thing to do with, the mommy and me kind of Saturday afternoon deal. So we've got manicures, pedicures, facials. We've also got the parties. And the parties could be anything from a pirate or a superhero to, for the little boys, to the glamour princess parties or the spa service parties for little girls. So those are also a lot of fun, and we do have a separate party room in our salons to host those parties. Area would be the retail products. We have our proprietary retail products, which have been developed specifically for Snip-its. They are not sold anywhere else except in our salons, and that really does drive a lot of repeat business. It is a very nice formulation. It is all natural, very gentle. It's a great product line for kids. Mm-hmm. And then the last section I would just call everything else. Let's talk about ear piercing and braiding workshops and all kinds of different types of additional add-on services or ideas that you can do just to add additional revenue to the business. It's not a single revenue line that is based on, bringing somebody in for one service and out. There's a lot of different ways that you can add on, and I think that really does give our franchisees some empowerment to really do with the business what they want. It doesn't have to be based on a single service or product.
It's really very clever, Kim. As I teach marketing at Kaplan University, we always talk about, going after new markets and adding additional services, and it's very clever. It's one of those things, when I was researching your concept, I said, God, why didn't I think of that? You know what I mean? It's very clever, and I'm sure a lot has to do with, the leadership of the organization. I know that the company shifted, I guess, starting in Boston, and now you're located, where are you located now, Kim? Or your headquarters?
We're actually
anyway?
in Minneapolis. Yes.
Oh, you are in Minneapolis now. Okay, which is great.
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting little saga. We very much like a lot of other franchisors in the industry, you start out with someone that is a very successful business person. Joanna had 3 locations in Boston, very successful small business woman. And she was approached to start franchising, and in 2003 she did start franchising, but she didn't have the depth and breadth of franchise experience as she did on her own business, and never really made that shift in philosophy, so to speak, to franchising. And she recruited Jim George, and I give her all the credit in the world for going out and finding somebody that has that experience, both in the industry, the salon industry, and the franchise industry. Asked him to consult and ultimately asked him to take the reins of the business. He agreed, but his one stipulation was to bring the company to Minneapolis. For whatever reason, the city of Minneapolis has probably the largest concentration of hair care industry experienced people, very highly experienced people live in Minneapolis because we have Great Clips, Regis, Aveda.
That's true. Right.
Yeah, there's a ton of hair care here. So he was able to really recruit very seasoned people, as I talked about before. And so it really did help the company in terms of creating a very strong foundation for franchising. And what he did, when he moved the company in 2009, of course, those folks that had been in the company at the time were very concerned, what is this going to do for our business? We are highly concentrated on the East Coast. Now we're moving out to the Midwest. What is that going to do to the business? Well, in fact, it actually really did help the franchisees, and I give both Jim and the team a lot of credit because they stopped selling franchises for a while and really focused on creating that framework, that foundation for franchising. and went back to those original franchisees and helped them really establish or reestablish their businesses, looked at what was going well, what wasn't going well, how to improve it. And by the time that they got around to, bringing me in to work on the strategy for development, they really had sewn things up pretty well. So it was all ready to go, and all we had to do was take it to market.
And then the concept could be duplicated from really anywhere in the United States at that point, it sounds like. And they say that franchising is a different, I hate to call it an animal, but, I've heard that so many times on the show, Kim, is that, it's very difficult to you take a great concept and franchise it. It's not so easy, is it?
No, it's really not. Having been a consultant with the Michael Sides group, who actually helped a lot of people become franchisees, franchisors,
Sure.
Really understanding what it takes to become a franchise is, I think, it's not something that you take lightly. It's a very expensive proposition to begin with, not just filing all of the materials and getting your legal documentation done, but also having enough capital to sustain the business until you are essentially living off the royalties of your franchisees and able to reinvest in additional technology and additional upgrades in the franchise model. That's really the key to franchising, is using other people's money to build your brand.
Sure, absolutely. How about, we kind of hinted upon the franchisees, Kim, but, is there anything that you look for in your franchisees, I guess, when, evaluating them to see if they would be a good match for Snip-its? What do you look for?
Absolutely. I think that is probably one of the biggest things that was not happening in the beginning. Was anybody that was interested was pretty much accepted into the system, and it took a while to realize that, no, that's really not going to be the best approach. As a franchisor, we have, my philosophy is we have a few obligations to our franchisees. Number one is obviously to build a brand, and number two is to protect that brand. By protecting it is making sure we're bringing the right franchisees in and making sure that they're brand stewards, and doing so with the same passion that all the other franchisees expect. And so when we look for new franchisees, we want to make sure that passion is there. Yes, it's about making money, but they also have to have a sense of, oh, I get it. I love this concept. I can see myself running this concept, and really identifying with that. Secondly, they have to have the capital. You can't finance this on credit cards. And I say that tongue-in-cheek, but we actually had a franchisee who financed their franchise with credit cards long ago.
Oh, boy.
Well, that's certainly not something that we would approve today. So they have to have at least $500,000 net worth and $100,000 capital liquid. The cost to get in for a single location is probably about $180,000. The franchise disclosure document is $115,000 to $206,000. That's a huge range, and it's based on the size of the location. But a typical 1,200 square foot location is going to be about $180,000, and we do want people to run more than one. It's not the type of concept that you want to have a single location. You want to have 3, 5, 8, even 10 locations so that you're really able to maximize that economy of scale. Otherwise, those financials just don't work out. You are spending an exorbitant amount of effort and time and resources for a single location when you could be doing the exact same thing for 5 locations and spreading the cost across all of them. So it really is a business for semi-absentee, multi-unit owners.
That's fantastic. And do they come out to headquarters, Kim? Is that how it works? Once you decide that they are a match, and they like you, you like them, do they come out to headquarters, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I have people come right at the end of the system. We call it a discovery process. They go through a 5-step process. They learn everything there is to know about the system, the franchise, what we do as a franchise system, and what their role is as franchisees. Then I have them come out and meet with our support team, and we call it Meet the Team Day. And that's really when the team then presents everything that I've talked about as what we do, and they take it to the next level at how they do it. And after the full day of meetings, then we have them, ultimately sign agreements. They come back probably about 90 days before their first salon opens, and they go through a week's worth of new franchise owner training. We just had one 2 weeks ago here, and we'll have another one next month. So we are growing, and during the course of their opening checklist, we have them come back out, and the full team is on staff. They do a full week of training. And then, again, they would have another week of training just before grand opening, and that's to train the staff, train the manager, the receptionist, the stylist, making sure that they're ready to go, ready to deliver on that brand promise.
It must be a great experience for you, I guess, when you see new ones open up all the time, isn't it?
It is. It's really fun. It's fun to see people being able to take that leap and trust that we know what we're doing. I think that, I can tell people what we do, but until they have a chance to talk to our franchisees and really hear what their stories are and to meet our staff, it's a no-brainer. People just fall in love with the idea of this concept. And anybody that has kids recognizes how useful it is. And certainly, this is not a $10 haircut either. This is a high-end upscale salon. So there isn't going to be one on every street corner. There isn't going to be one across the street, and there isn't a lot of local competition. So we are able to have a higher level haircut price. It's located in upscale neighborhoods, and it gives our franchisees some exclusivity.
That's great. Where do you see the company in 10 years, Kim? Are there other markets that you're going to start to go after?
Well, I think I can see us, going international. I can see we do get an awful lot of inquiries from international markets. We're just not there yet. I think that we are very, very close, but I think that we need to take the steps associated with preparing our brand to go international before we go international. And we are working on that, but we're not as focused on that as we are on our domestic growth. I think that the salons will probably number between 500 and 1,000 salons in the U.S., and then we'll probably need to start looking outside of our domestic area and look at other areas around the world.
Absolutely. You've been involved in franchising quite a long time now, Kim, and your background, it's very interesting because it is very diverse. But what advice would you give to our listeners as far as their quest to buy a franchise? We find that a lot of them, they kind of know that they want to get into franchising, but they just simply don't know where to begin because, as you know, there's so much out there. So what advice would you give to them in their quest to buy a franchise?
I think one of the things that I have used, or one tool that I have used in the past, is a book called the Franchisee Workbook, and you can find it on Amazon. It's written by Rick Bizio, a friend of mine. It's a great way doing sort of an introspective interview of yourself, understanding what your strengths and weaknesses are, what you like to do, what you don't like to do. Having a really good inventory of who you are, what you want, is going to be probably the best first step to making a good informed decision. The other idea I would suggest is, FranChoice has great programs in place to really help you walk through that process. And it is free to a franchise candidate looking for a franchise. but to open up the entire spectrum of franchise opportunities, because like a franchise would only have maybe 100 or 200 franchisors
right.
in their system.
Right.
I think that looking at the full spectrum of franchising, which could be 1,000 or 2,000 franchises that are actively growing in the U.S. today, you might want to look at different types of directories. I know there's worldfranchising.com has a lot of different directories. One is how do I make money in franchising, a directory of standard types of businesses, and just start researching using those directories and online portals. Once you start looking at the franchise itself, my biggest advice is to narrow it to 3 at a time, cut and compare what you like and what you don't like. You will immediately start to get a feeling about it and eliminate as soon as you start to not like something, eliminate, and then go and find something to replace it. And ultimately you will start to narrow it down to a point where the light will go on and say, this is it.
It's a lot of work, isn't it? But but I think, as you said, like once you discover like what it is, I mean, again, even for myself in something, studying your model, and I've heard of the brand before, but once I started studying, I said, oh my God, I said, this is truly a great concept. And you were also at were you at the franchise show this year in New York, Kim? Were you? I think you guys were.
I usually am, but I was not this year.
Oh, okay. Or maybe it was last year.
It was last year.
I think I've seen you in previous years, which is fantastic, so I think that's great. Your website, by the way, is very impressive. I mean, there is so much information on there, and then once you start studying that, it gives you a very good idea, as far as who Snip-its is, what you do and things like that. What's the best way for our listeners, Kim, to get more information on becoming a franchisee? Is the website the best place to start off?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, obviously visit us at www.snippetsfranchise.com and take a peek at, the different pages that are involved in that. It's a pretty high-level introduction to who we are and what we do. You will find a couple different PDFs on there you can download. One is the story of Joanna and how she got started with Snip-its. The other one is really looking at who our franchisee looks like, what they want from the business, what we want from them. It's a profile. Ultimately, if you want to get more information and want to join us on a discovery process, a little request form on the right side and get that submitted. Otherwise, you can always call me as well. It's 1-877-SNIPPETS, or you can call me direct at 952-237-2865 is really the best way to call me directly, and I can help you with an overview discussion and get you started with our discovery process as well.
That's fantastic. I want to thank you again for coming on the show, Kim. You've been a wonderful guest, and I'd already like to invite you back next year as you continue to grow. I got really excited when I learned about this opportunity. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you, Marty. I really appreciate your time. And thanks to everybody listening.
Oh, thanks, Kim. And we'll be right back with more franchise interviews.
Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? For over 8 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919. Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott from Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, we've been hosting franchise interviews many years now, and you can actually hear the show in a number of different places today. You can go to, of course, franchiseinterviews.com, where we have our interviews arranged alphabetically. We also have interviews arranged by category. So if you have a particular industry that you're interested in, you can go to the category of your choice and check out all the different interviews that we've done over the years. Our show's been syndicated in a number of different places. Of course, you can hear our show on blogtalkradio.com. We've been working with Blog Talk Radio for many years now, and you can hear the live shows there, and then you can download them as an MP3. You can hear our shows on Stitcher.com. You can hear our interviews on, I think it's pronounced, I always want to call it Blueberry.com, but it's BLUBRRY.com, which is another podcast service. You can now hear our shows on iTunes.com, and of course, you can hear our shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week if you're a diehard fan to our show on Live365.com. And we have over the years over 420 shows. So if you were to listen to Live365.com for 2 weeks, there's a chance that you may not even hear the same show twice. So that's how many shows we've recorded over the years. But today's Great Quote in Franchising podcast comes from Darren Guccione, and Darren is the CEO and co-founder of Keeper Security, Inc. And what's interesting about this podcast, we had Darren on the show as the founder and the creator of Keeper, which is the world's most downloaded password manager and digital vault. And Darren is a real entrepreneur. And one of the questions that we ask on the show is, what advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur or franchipreneur or someone looking to buy a franchise? And that question is usually directed to someone who has been directly involved in franchising over the years. But again, Darren is a real entrepreneur. His background is in accounting and business. And I thought his response was just as great as anything that we've heard on the show. So here we go with Darren Guccione, the CEO and co-founder of Keeper Security, Inc.
Amazing. It's amazing technology. In studying your background, Darren, I mean, I was mentioning earlier, I mean, the majority of our listeners, again, we call them aspiring franchipreneurs. You know, they want to go into their own business, and they're kind of like heading towards the franchise alternative. What advice would you give to them? Because you're certainly, in studying you, certainly classified as an entrepreneur. So what advice would you give to them?
Well, my background is engineering technology. I'm also a CPA, and I've always had an admiration for franchises. One of the things that I love about franchises, among other things, is that you can analyze the different franchise models that are out there, the brands, the type of businesses, and you can quickly identify which ones are successful. And typically, they give you a roadmap of what you need to do to execute. When you start a business without a franchise roadmap, you typically don't necessarily know where you're necessarily going to go or wind up. And so you get a greater sense of security and guidance when you can pick a franchise model that, A, fits within, your goals in life, your interests in life, and B, provides a really sound infrastructure for you to build a business with a great support system around you. Most businesses that are one-off businesses don't have that. So there's a greater sense of, uncertainty out there when a business owner or an entrepreneur, as you've outlined it, decides to, pursue a franchise versus doing something completely fresh and new. I think the risk profile of doing the latter is much greater. So that's my response to that.
It's fantastic advice. So any final thoughts, Darren?
Fantastic interview with Darren Guccione. So I want to thank everyone for making our show such a success, and this podcast has really just taken off over the years, and we got some really great quotes in franchising coming up. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you again soon with another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising from Franchise Interviews. Take care, everyone.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.